we have a great group of really experienced policy people who are here to enlighten us about what's happening in the rest of the country. So please join me in welcoming our panelists.
Always dangerous when you have the speakers do their own tech. Good morning, everybody. I'm James Corless. I'm the Director of Transportation for America. Thanks so much for having me here. It's great to hear the Michigan story. And I don't know if this is true or not, but here's what I heard about the final deal in the days in December in the lame duck session with Governor Snyder, who was fast becoming one of my heroes. The governor who actually pushed through the legislature a regional transit authority for southeastern Michigan to get the city and the suburbs back together on transit. They're in the lame duck session. They got the House, the Senate leaders debating, as Ed was kind of describing. They're up in the state capitol building, and Snyder says, all right, we need a whiteboard. You know the governor's motto, right? One tough nerd. So we need a whiteboard. So people go, the only whiteboard they can find is huge. They dismantle it. They bring it up the elevator. Snyder's putting all the boxes everywhere and saying, here's how it currently works, and here's how this proposal is going to work. So they're sort of debating back and forth, and he said, all right, staff, give me my laptop. I need Excel time. And he actually was running all the numbers himself. Now, I tell you that, don't tell me that's wrong, because I love that story. I tell you that because I think it's fabulous that you had the governor here this morning, and as a national organization that looks at what states have done all across the country, one of the very common threads is you've got to have your governor involved and engaged. If your governor sits back, if your governor's not there putting forward proposals, then you're in bad luck. Okay, I'm going to try to deal with it. It worked for you. I don't know what you were doing. All right, we are, as Margaret said, a national organization. We've got a pretty diverse group of business, elected, and civic leaders. Our advisory board is made up of local chambers of commerce, elected officials, a lot of civic leaders locally who understand that transportation and infrastructure is not just the key to jobs, but honestly is the key to their economic health and their competitiveness as local cities and regions. I'm going to talk to you a little bit and fill in the great presentations from Wisconsin and Michigan, but I want to tell you a little bit about what's been happening. Plan B? Okay. How's that? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? All right. So great to hear from Wisconsin and Michigan. But the fact of the matter is, nearly a dozen states passed transportation revenue packages the last 2 years. This is really unprecedented. The map here, the dark red states, were successful in states on light red, basically had proposals, attempt to do something in the last state legislative sessions on transportation funding. Why did this happen? Why is this map more colorful than at any time in recent history? Because as somebody who worked on Congress for 4 years and tried to get them to pass a transportation bill with more funding, guess what? Congress didn't pass a transportation bill with more funding. They took 3 years to debate a bill that lasts 2 years. It's about to expire in May. And we were lucky to get even flat funding. So the days when, I know I'm going to shock you with this, Congress is coming to your rescue are over. That's not to say that we're not going to need your help to make sure they don't actually retreat entirely, but we're not really looking at major increases. The first time in about 3 decades that Congress passed a transportation bill with no increases. The states saw this happening, they understood it was coming, and they said, my God, we got to do something, we got to act, and that's exactly what happened. This is probably one of the best times that we can talk about increasing revenue because of this chart right here, and I know you all know it. This decline in gas prices, we don't know how long it will go on for. It's about as unprecedented as the run-up in gas prices in 2008, but it is our time to take advantage of this fall in prices in terms of thinking about user fees and revenues and increasing gas taxes. And many, many states are understanding this trend right now in terms of putting a package together. A couple of lessons that we've learned, in fact, as Transportation for America, we just put a report out last week looking at all the state transportation funding packages. And what I'm giving you today is a little bit of the highlights of that report that's up on our website at T4America.org. Here are some of the themes that emerge from these states. And I mentioned, transportation is jobs, and I see your buttons around here, and it's absolutely vital, of course, in an era of still relatively high unemployment, especially in the trades. But something else is happening, and there's another theme that emerges here. Transportation is also about competitiveness, economic competitiveness for the country, but also for states and regions, rural areas and urban areas. The ability to attract and retain talent and young people and businesses is what is motivating, especially the last 2 years, I think more than ever before, an understanding and a political desire to do something about transportation. A couple of other themes, and we're going to talk, we're talking a lot about revenue and money, but as Ed certainly knows, going to the voters, which is not a bad thing, we have to really, I think, rebuild some of the public trust that I think, frankly, we've lost the last few years. And we do that through accountability measures, transparency. A lot of states are looking at ways in which they can really try to explain what the taxpayer is buying for their dollar. We're trying to get more quantitative in terms of what we get from transportation investments and really explaining that to the voter and the taxpayer. These measures, many of them are multimodal, fund multiple modes of transportation. By the way, kudos to Move Minnesota. You guys have put a fabulous coalition together. You've put the modes together. You're talking highways, you're talking